Any health-related information on the following show provides general information only. Content presented on any show by any host or guest should not be substituted for a doctor's advice. Always consult your physician before beginning any new diet, exercise, or treatment program.
In a world where Big Pharma writes the script, it's time to believe. Biohack. Become.
We're here to explore the truth about healing that exists outside the broken medical system, to give you the knowledge, the community, and the strategies you need to become the hero of your own health story.
Your guide is a biohacking entrepreneur, a near-death survivor, and a cancer warrior, navigating his own healing journey. Founder of Biohackingville, Exodus Strong, and QE Strong. Your host, Rob Renee. This is Biohackingville, where the medical system has failed us. One man is leading the rebellion to reclaim.
Hey. So excited for today is a really exciting day. I'm so excited that you're here. We have a really special guest with us today, Dr. Cliton Demaris from Well Within Chiropractic. He's an amazing practitioner in the Dallas metro area, and just an amazing man that I met a number of years ago, maybe just a little over a year ago. And man, has it been exciting, the things that I've learned from him, and just the stories that I hear of how he's helping people, and just who he is as a human being. He's amazing, and what he's doing to help people is super exciting. So I wanted to bring on Dr. Cliton Demaris. How are you, Doc?
Great, man. I'm excited to be here.
Good. This is going to be a lot of fun. So I know we've talked a lot about so many different topics of health in general. And I know you're helping a lot of people, even family members of mine and myself.
Yeah.
And so it's been a lot of fun with what you have done. But so today's going to be exciting because we're going to learn a lot about you, which will be fun. And I know that you have lots of different areas that you're super experienced in and passionate about. And so I wanted to just give you a quick shout out and thanks for all that you do. And why don't you just give a quick overview of who you are, and then what do you want to talk about today?
Sure. Yeah. Well, once again, I just super appreciate being on here. I love this kind of stuff. I love educating. I love sharing. And more than anything, I just love seeing people get better. We live in a world right now that is sick. We've got a lot of sick people out there. There is no lack of sick people to treat. And there's a lot of reasons behind that. So I'm passionate about that. My mom got pretty sick when I was a little kid. And, I grew up in Alaska. I like to joke with all my Texas friends about that. I tell them, if you cut Alaska in half, then Texas would be the third largest state.
I love it.
I even got a T-shirt of that.
That's a good one. I haven't heard that one. I love it.
But yeah, my mom got sick when I was a kid. I was probably 8, 9 years old, and she was super fatigued, just kind of just depressed, sleeping all the time, getting hives, just lots of problems. And we went to a lot of docs and they just couldn't figure anything out. They all just said, I don't know, maybe she's depressed or something. Maybe take some Prozac or something. And, my parents are like, man, I think there's something else going on here. And we ran into some natural docs. They kind of we joke around. We should change the name of Well Within. That's the name of my practice, to the Last Ditch Effort Clinic. Right. So, yeah. So we go to this guy, Wayne, and he was right on the money, a holistic practitioner. He figured out exactly what was going on with her right away, kind of turned my whole family into thinking differently about health and medicine and how we treat the body. I consequently went on a mission trip after high school, decided, I prayed about it a lot and decided that this was the profession I should be in. I want to be helping people. I actually went to engineering school for 1 year and then realized, this is what I need to be doing. And I just told the Lord, I said, I'll treat anybody you send to me. Just send me to the right mentors, send me to people that know what they're doing. And I want to learn. I want to know. And I've been super lucky and blessed to have met some of the greatest healers out there and some really, really cool and interesting techniques, one of which we'll highlight today. I practice in Frisco, Texas. I've got a clinic here with a couple doctors. We're really busy. We like to tell people that we don't want to just treat your symptoms. It's poor medicine. In fact, it's lazy medicine. I want to know why you have the problems you have, right? Let's get to the root cause. As an example, people come in, I say, you could have a headache and I could give you a pill, maybe get rid of your symptom, but why do you have headaches to begin with, right? And that's where I think it's poor and lazy, right? We're diagnosing symptoms. We're not actually diagnosing underlying problems. And then we're just treating the symptom. So I want to know why people have what they have. And I tell people all the time, there's 6 things that actually cause their problems. Their body has an innate intelligence inside of it. It knows how to heal. Your body knows exactly what it's supposed to do. So if you have a problem, it's not because it just like forgot, right? It just all of a sudden forgot how to manage its blood pressure. It all of a sudden just forgot. No, something's in the way. If I remove the barrier, your body will then start doing its job. So our problems could be neurological or structural. Now, I was originally trained as a chiropractor. I spent my whole entire life in functional medicine studying what I believe to be the true underlying causes of disease, but I was still originally trained as a chiropractor. So we do a lot of adjustments and neurological rehab with laser light, pretty cool stuff when it comes to concussions and dyslexia and dizziness, vertigo. I mean, anything that has to do with neurological stuff. The concussions are a big one, super overlooked. Could be nutritional. I'm not going to go off on nutrition tonight, but man, our diets are not good. Our food supply is not good. We don't rotate crops right. Could be nutrition, could be food allergens, underlying infections, immune system imbalances. A lot of these are unknown. Most of them don't hurt the stomach. People are absolutely surprised when we start talking about parasites or underlying food sensitivities, things like that. I mean, super common. So you got to clean the gut, got to clean the immune. Could be chemicals. We live in an environment with, 85,000 chemicals or something like that. Most of them have not been tested. Most of those are illegal in Europe, actually. And then, the last piece, which I'm going to focus in on, is the emotional stress piece. This is critical. I think that it's been given lip service. What I mean by that is if I ask people at a seminar and I say, hey, how many of you guys think your stress can make you sick? Everybody raises their hand, right? Hey, how many of you think that stress can make you really sick? Right? Everybody raises their hand. Do you think that stress could kill you? And almost everybody raises their hand. Like, we know that this is real, but the problem is, how does the rubber meet the road when you actually do come into your practitioner and you have some sort of chronic problem? You've got migraines, you can't sleep, you've got chronic pain, you're depressed, you're anxious, you got insomnia. Like, how does the stress piece connect to that? That's where we don't always know, right? Like, what actually caused what? So let me break it down for you a little bit. And I actually see a question here. What could be the underlying cause of high blood pressure? So this is going to sound a little bit facetious, but the 6 things that I just mentioned, any one of those could be the cause. So it could be an autonomic nervous system thing. You could be stuck in fight or flight mode. There could be a nutritional deficiency. There could be an underlying toxicity. There could be a food allergen. There could be an infection. Could be stress. Literally all of those could be it. How do you find the cause? Well, that's a really good question, right? So one of the things that we do in the office, besides a functional evaluation, which might include a lab panel, is muscle testing. We use muscle testing as a way to determine and challenge the body, so to speak, to see how it's responding to different things. We run neurological tests. We do in-depth histories. I have a medical director and a PMA, a private membership agreement, which allows me leeway to do other things as well. So once again, in my clinic, I can do nutritional IVs, hyperbaric oxygen. We use peptide therapies, exosome stem cell therapies. We connect with Mexico on that. We work with biodentists. We sent you down there and did a little dental work. The root canals, man, holy smokes. That's the story.
Yes. We could do a whole show on my health case. Sure.
Yeah, we could do a whole show on that. Yeah. So, some failed root canals, man, you got to check those babies out for sure. That can be an issue. So we'll talk a little bit more about just the emotional piece today, though. Okay. So here's what I tell people about stress. First of all, I like to tell people that stress is not a thing. Now, when I say that, everybody goes, what? Stress is the perception of a thing. Mm. It's not really what's happening per se. It's how we are perceiving and responding to that thing that creates the problem. Because life is not without problems. That's not how it was designed. I tell anybody who's a Christian, I go, if you read the Bible, the Lord did not say, in the world, you maybe could possibly run into trouble.
Maybe, right?
That's a promise. He says you will. In the world, you will have trouble. So that's a given. Now, do we have to be depressed, discouraged, down by those things? Now, that's a different story. That's our perception of those things, right? So I want to work on the perception that somebody has of their problem. Some of the problems we have aren't going to change, at least not right away. So can we accept those problems and understand those problems and figure out maybe why we respond the way that we do to those problems? So stress is a perception. That's the perception that we're going to work on.
Okay.
So that's what I would call like psychological though, right? So if somebody comes in and tells me they're feeling depressed, I want to know one of two things. Is it psychological, as in stress in their life, maybe belief systems that they have or traumas that they've gone through, things like that? Or is it what I call brain depression? This is a really interesting thing, right? Brain depression means something, and I mentioned those other areas, is affecting your brain's ability to function. So could a concussion cause you to feel depressed? Absolutely. It's one of the first things that shows up when somebody gets concussed. You might think of headaches and dizziness and things like that, but long-term depression is a massive symptom of a concussion. So could there be that? Could there be a nutritional deficiency causing you to be depressed? 100%. We are so deficient in basic minerals and B vitamins that are absolutely critical and needed to make neurotransmitters and amino acids. You could absolutely be depressed because of a nutritional issue. The most common nutritional deficiencies I find in depression specifically would be P5P, which is an active form of B6, magnesium, zinc, deficiencies of proteins and amino acids. So in depression with serotonin, you're going to be looking at like 5-HTP, like a tryptophan. If it's a dopamine issue, you're going to be looking like tyrosine, B6 again. So nutrition could play a big part. Underlying infections. So could somebody be depressed because they have a virus, like let's say Epstein-Barr virus, like mono? I get that all the time. People come in, man, I'm depressed. I sit them down in the report and I go, you're not depressed. And they go, what do you mean? I go, you got mono, man. Like you're exhausted. And they're like, yeah, I could sleep 10, 12 hours and take a nap and still be tired. And so it feels depressing, but it's an infection, right? Food allergens, like I mentioned, toxicities, all these things, mold in your house, holy smokes, mold can depress somebody in a heartbeat. And so their depression is actually more of a physical issue. So do we have any physical things affecting the brain? And then on the stress side of things, if we do have an issue, did you get the chart there? Rob, did you see that chart that I uploaded?
Perfect.
Okay. So this chart right here, if you guys
can zoom in on that at all, I don't know if we can zoom in on that.
Can we zoom in on it? Is that possible?
Doesn't look like it. But just go ahead and explain it. We'll
That's okay. If you can't read the details, it's no worries. You'll be able to see what I'm talking about here. So this chart is so important. It's so cool. We have literally 3 different brains, like 3 areas of our brains that have different functions, and they're somewhat like what we would say loosely connected. So if you look at the column over here in the green, the reptile brain or the crocodile brain, this brain right here is the brain stem. It's actually the lower part of the brain. All reptiles have this brain. This brain is completely unconscious and it controls our survival instinct. This is fight or flight mode. You guys have all been in fight or flight, right? At some point in your life, you get scared, you get shocked, something happens, there's a near accident or something like that, and bam, that fight or flight mode kicks in. This is, once again, unconscious, hunger, heart rate, breathing. You can't just like tell yourself like, okay, heart don't beat. Like, can't consciously control that. So this survival instinct. Then you look at the middle section, the subconscious. We call this the mammalian brain. So mammals have this brain. This is where emotions and memory formation comes in. Emotion, memory. This is very perfectionistic, and it doesn't forget anything. This is huge. This emotional memory, this subconscious mind is very, very powerful. Then when
I need more of that one.
Yeah.
I don't forget anything. I need one of those.
Well, here's the thing. We may not consciously remember, but the subconscious remembers. So that's the one right there. So if you look over at the blue category here in the neocortex, this is the conscious mind. Now, the conscious mind, this is what makes us human. Like, this gives us the ability to reason, to really critically think, rational thinking, language, purposeful behavior. This is the neocortex. And it's literally the outer layer of the brain. So somebody says, okay, that's cool information. What does that have to do with what we're talking about? Here's why. If somebody is feeling stress, anxious, angry, sad, scared, any of these emotions that we may be feeling, we tend to think, once again, we're human, we're very rational thinking. You got to remember and recognize emotions do not come from the rational part of your brain. They come from this center part, this mammalian subconscious mind. Emotions technically are not rational. They're not necessarily irrational, but they're not rational either. And if you get scared or you get pushed into that survival mode, your brain is reflexive. You don't critically think about that. So the example I use is, like, let's say you're clipping along down the freeway and like there's a major accident in front of you and you almost get in an accident and you ended up jerking the wheel to avoid it, right? When I ask people, why did you do that? Did you critically think? Did you analyze, well, I'm going about 65. Now I don't have a lot of room to the right. I could go to the left. Do we analyze? We don't have time to do that. You can't critically analyze. Your brain just goes bam and instantaneously, reflexively responds. Boom, right? So why would this be important for treatment? Here's why this is important for treatment. Let's say you've got a person who has PTSD. PTSD, true PTSD, is not, once again, a rational, logical process. You can sit down with somebody who has PTSD and explain to them very clearly, very logically, why they should not react the way that they do to the situation at hand. And, you could be working with a war veteran or something, right? And you could say, hey, man, you're not in Afghanistan anymore. That's been decades since you were there. It's been years, right? It's been a long time. And the thing is, they will agree with you. They'll go, yeah, I know, man. Like the logical mind knows 100%. It knows, yeah, I'm not there anymore. But the subconscious mind is responding. The unconscious and subconscious minds are reacting and responding. So they're feeling a certain way and they're reacting a certain way, but it's not a logical response because it didn't, once again, sit down and logically go through the pros and the cons and then decide, yeah, I think I should be scared. I think I should be scared. I think that's the appropriate response, right? I could have gotten hurt, so I'm going to be scared. It's like, that's not how it works. You just are scared. Just bam, that's it, right? And then your body responds to that emotion. So why does this matter? Well, once again, if you're going to be doing some level of therapy or you're going to be doing some level of treatment and work through stress, simply just talking about it is not always enough to actually change the way the brain perceives and or responds to an event.
That's actually fascinating. That's just interesting. I've never heard of it explained this way. It makes, I understand it, which is, which is pretty cool, but that's really interesting topic.
Yeah. If you think, like I said, if you look at the brain, you start to realize, wow, that's why, to be honest, standard cognitive behavioral therapy is a total failure for PTSD.
Right.
Because you're talking about it, you're engaging the conscious mind, but the unconscious and subconscious minds don't communicate that way.
That's incredible. That's incredible.
Right?
Yeah.
In fact, you can make it worse. If you just talk about the trauma for an hour, it actually can trigger them.
Yeah. And your subconscious just says, hey, hold on, there's a lot of bad things going on here. I'm not feeling 100%. So good. Right?
I'm not feeling safe at all right now. You know what I mean? I'm actually feeling worse. And so a lot of those guys end up self-medicating. They drink, they use drugs, all sorts of stuff, right? And so if you truly want to get down to some of these deeper issues, you have to know what the subconscious and unconscious minds are perceiving, not necessarily what the person thinks. It's what they're feeling. And we try to, once again, we kind of get in our society, we're constantly trying to figure out, why do I feel that way? Like, why would I react that way and stuff like that? And that's not a process that's fruitless completely, but to a degree, it may not ever make sense because it didn't start logical.
That's interesting.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. It totally
So if
makes sense.
somebody comes into my office and they've got a chronic physical problem that nobody's been able to correct, I wonder, is this actually an emotional trauma or stress or belief system? And in many instances, you do find that. And this is the kind of the funny joke, because when we actually address this correctly, their problem might go away right away. And that's where I get the voodoo doc nickname. So we go, holy cow, doc, that was so weird. I've had this headache off and on forever, for years. This neck pain, nobody can fix it. I've tried this, I've tried meds, I've tried acupuncture adjustments, I do my testing and I figure out this was some sort of trauma that happened a few years ago. And then when we address it, they sometimes immediately they go, geez, man, that's weird. It doesn't hurt anymore. And I'm like, yeah, so the physical stuff could be connected to the emotions 100%. And sometimes what we think is the problem is not really the problem. And so muscle testing is a really cool way for us to challenge the nervous system and not only ask questions and talk about them, but to actually challenge what the unconscious or subconscious mind perceives. If I bring up the concept of an issue that is stressful for this person or taps into a trauma, the muscle test is temporarily going to change. Now, I don't know how many people are listening to the podcast right now or how many are familiar with muscle testing.
I was going to literally have you back up, and just because I know applied kinesiology and I know a lot about muscle testing, but that's just because I've been studying it to the last year. But there's a lot of people who are like, "What muscle testing? What is that? That sounds a little strange. It sounds weird. What is that?" So let's back up for the people who don't know and explain it a little bit, and then how does that work?
Let's chat about muscle testing a little bit. So all of your muscles have reflexes in them, right? So if you were sitting on my table and let's say your leg's hanging off the table and I tap on right under your kneecap, right? If I hit just in the right spot, your leg just goes boing and just automatically reflexively responds, right? You didn't consciously go, I think I should kick my leg. It just like doink responds, right? Reflexively. That's a little bit of an oversimplification, but your body will reflexively respond to positive and negative stimuli. So I can put your arm out and I can push on your arm, and that arm should lock nice and strong. If I introduce something to your body, like let's say a chemical or a food allergen, something your body's having a negative reaction to, or let's say your neck hurts and I push on it, that muscle test will temporarily weaken. Now, it doesn't mean the muscle doesn't work, and it doesn't mean that you're not strong, but it will temporarily inhibit the muscle and it'll turn off for a second. And then I know, oh yeah, that's the spot. And whatever you're holding, like if you've got a chemical sensitivity and you smell it or you touch it on your body and it's a problem for you and I test you, it'll temporarily weaken the muscle. Had a lady in here earlier today. She's got a ton of eczema and she brought in all of her makeup and I tested her and it was about half of it that was causing her problems.
Wow, really?
Yeah, as soon as she puts it on her skin, I muscle test, I'm like, that's a problem. And it was funny though, because she didn't tell me which ones she thought were problems. But every one that I tested, I go, I think that's a problem. She goes, I think you're right. I swear that one gives me a rash, So I can then do the opposite though. I can say, does this person need magnesium? Do they need zinc? Do they need CoQ10? Do they need an adjustment? Do they need laser light? Do they need an emotional release? And if they touch on emotional points on their forehead, if it changes the muscle test, I know it's related. Then what we do is we then start testing categories of things. Okay, let's figure out where this stress comes from. And I can test the concept of money and love and friends and family and work and family you have now and family you came from. And we can start whittling it down and the muscle test will weaken when we tap on the right one. And then I can figure out exactly what the situation is, who was involved, and what emotion was involved. This actually came about because Dr. Scott Walker, the founder of NET, that's the technique we use, the NeuroEmotional technique, took the principles of chiropractic and muscle testing and molded them with acupuncture wisdom. The acupuncturists figured out thousands of years ago that there are emotions connected to every single meridian system. So for instance, the liver governs anger. The lungs govern grief. The kidneys govern fear. So what I can do is I can find a weak situation, an event, maybe it's, a spouse or a kid or something like that. If I touch over the liver point and it changes, then I know they got some anger, frustration, resentment. If I touch on the kidney, I know there's some fear there. So then I put those together and then I'd say, okay, now tell me why you would have some fear in relation to your son. And then that's when they start telling you what's going on. It's like, oh my gosh, he got a really bad diagnosis. I'm really scared. He's not going to be able to, da 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 da. Then what we do is we use acupuncture points again to help us correct it.
Wow. Okay. So you use it to diagnose the issue, but then you can also reverse it.
You can use the muscle testing acupuncture points to diagnose. Then you can use those acupuncture points to then correct. We want to process through this emotion. So I can find what the stressful event is, what the emotion is. And then what we want to also know is if there was an original time in their life where they felt this way. Now, this goes into this idea of how our brains really work, and they want to protect us. So that's why we don't forget things. The problem is if you had a trauma when you were younger of any type, if something similar happens, we can get what we call operant conditioning. Probably the best way to describe this is Pavlov and his dogs. Are you guys familiar with this? Have you guys heard of Pavlov?
I've heard of it, but explain it again.
So Pavlov, what he did was he would take these dogs and he would feed them meat and they would salivate, right? So when he presented food, they'd salivate. And what he started to do is he rang a bell every single time right before he was going to feed him. So he'd ring a bell, then he would feed him. He'd ring a bell, then he would feed him. He did this for a while. Then what they started doing is they would ring a bell, not give them any meat, and then check their saliva production. And the large majority would start salivating because they had connected the bell with food.
Yeah, got it.
Right. They made that connection in their brain. So then now it's where they're now conditioned. Right. So the interesting thing was some dogs over time, if they didn't feed them and ring the bell, would stop salivating. They'd start to realize I'm not getting meat anymore when you ring the bell. Some of them did not though. Some that would persist even years later, they'd ring a bell, bam, instantly the brain's like, where's the meat? So if somebody has a trauma or a difficult situation of some type, and later in life, somebody rings a bell and kind of hits a similar type thing, they could have a response to that and not really know why.
Interesting.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
We've been neglected, abandoned, abused, treated poorly. Like I said, felt unloved, uncared about, unimportant, right? Not special. Those could be triggered now. And I see this all the time. So the present day problem isn't always the real problem.
Yeah, so you can literally go back in time in an individual's life and identify not only maybe what caused it, but when, right? Which is so fascinating.
Yeah, so we could come up with any scenario you want. You could pick any situation that is stressful for somebody. Anything. And then we could determine, do we have an original event or a belief system that is related to this? And that's why this is an issue. So I'll use this one. I know some of these are very oversimplified, but nonetheless, you'll understand, right? So you got a couple, let's say he travels for work a little bit. Every time he leaves, she gets anxious and she might even fight with him. She doesn't like it, right? And he just doesn't understand what the big deal is. He's like, I'm going to be in Houston for 2 days, I'll call you, but she doesn't, there's something there, right? Well, I might muscle test her and find out that she's got some serious abandonment issues when she was younger. Like, let's say dad absolutely just took off or, right, something severe, right? There was maybe a divorce when she was younger. So every time he leaves, it triggers some really ugly feelings inside her, and she doesn't necessarily know why. So like I said, she might fight, she might get depressed, she might get anxious, she might text him and call him a lot, and he's not understanding why this is such a big deal. When you understand this, it makes sense. It's like, okay. Even though he's like, hey, hon, see you in 2 days, right? Her nervous system's like, oh no, he's leaving. He's abandoning me, and I'm going to be all by myself. And it triggers a whole ton of different things. So if they went to counseling and she says, I don't like it when he leaves and he doesn't take good care of me while he's gone and all this stuff, a good counselor is going to go, there might be something else going on here, right? And if you find that earlier event, it changes everything. And then when you do treatment on that and you process that, people will come back and say, yeah, it's not a big deal when he leaves anymore. I didn't realize that was the problem. I thought he was just being inconsiderate or something. And it's like, that's not it one bit. So we are all dealing with this. We have our own belief systems and we only see the world through the lenses through our own experience, but we don't necessarily know we got a lens on, right? If you put a pair of glasses on and left them on for a really long period of time, your brain would not know that you have glasses on because that's the only way you ever see the world. It's the only perception that you have.
Right.
If you take the glasses off, it's like, holy smokes, this isn't what I necessarily thought it was. So a lot of us are dealing with conditioned responses.
That is amazing.
And those conditioned responses,
makes sense.
They can make us sick and they can actually affect us physically. So I literally every single day help somebody process through an emotion and something physically gets better and or mental emotional will get better. And once again, this is very much different from just like therapy where you're talking it out.
Right. So it's not like you're a psychologist laying on the couch.
Well, and I tell people there's benefit to it. I get it. Sometimes you really do need to talk it out. You need to understand it. You need to figure out strategies and stuff. But you always have to try and figure out, is there an underlying reason why this is such a problem for me?
Right.
Is this triggering something else? Like, why am I angry? Why am I sad? Why am I jealous? Like, why am I, anxious right now? And that's what you find a lot of times. It has another meaning. And that's what we have a lot of success with. And so we can quickly and effectively determine some of these things. Is there perfectionism involved? Is there a sense of low self-worth involved here? Is that why this is so bad? Is there abandonment and neglect issues, right? Is there a real strong sense of unfairness? Like anger is just a sense of injustice or unfairness. That's what we're perceiving. But why do we perceive it that way? Why do we get defensive? Why are we defended? Why are we frustrated? And so this is a little bit more of a root cause concept. I find that the technique I use, the NeuroEmotional technique, is very effective. In fact, if you go to the Net Mind Body website or their research foundation, the One Research Foundation, there's a ton of research, fMRI studies. In fact, we have an fMRI study on the brain. If you don't know what an fMRI is, an MRI shows you the soft tissue of the brain. An fMRI shows you the activity of areas of the brain. So you can look and say, wow, the amygdala is really fired up right now, or this area is overactive or underactive. So they took a group of individuals at Thomas Jefferson University that had PTSD, and they did the NeuroEmotional technique while, doing fMRI studies before and after. Not only did the patients report feeling better, but when they did the fMRI, they could see that the brain activity had changed. And this is just an absolute landmark study. It's huge. Published, Thomas Jefferson University. Absolutely amazing. So we're showing that this technique will actually change the brain.
That's so awesome. Right. I mean, so yeah, literally not only do you're helping people because they're feeling better, right? But it's physically changing their brain, right? Which that is so cool.
Yep. And I can't remember the name of the doc, but there was, he was kind of like one of the main head guys in fMRI. So they brought in like the head fMRI specialist and a guy who had done a lot of brain studies on like meditation and some other things. And so when they did this, they were just blown away at the results.
Yeah.
Blown away. So when you and I were discussing what topics, right, go through, it's like emotions, and we could use the word trapped. I think maybe unprocessed is a little better, but these patterns absolutely affect our health. You can look at research, and they will tell you. This is one that I was listening to an Audible book just the other day, and they were talking about how if you look at all the factors that gives them longevity, they're looking at diet, they're looking at exercise, looking at sleep, like chemical, all this stuff. The one that rated the highest? the quality of their close relationships.
Wow, really interesting.
That can not only make you healthy, but it also can make you very sick. I don't care if you have the best diet in the world. I don't care if you sleep and exercise and do all the things, right? All the biohacking stuff that we talk about all the time, right? If you're doing all those things, doing peptides and, saunas, and we're doing hyperbarics, and we're doing cold plunges, and we're doing gut cleansing. Look, I love that stuff, man.
Yeah, all the stuff I love to talk about.
But if your close relationships are stressful and or very toxic and you don't feel safe, you're going to be sick.
Wow. That's it. So it literally affects their longevity just because of their close relationship. That's really interesting.
It's absolutely huge. And it's not little amounts, it's large amounts. Some of these studies are crazy, and I hate to quote anecdotal stuff when I don't have the stuff right in front of me, but research on if a guy has a heart attack, an older guy, and he doesn't have any close family members, the chances of him dying goes up like 8-fold.
Jeez.
It's not like 10%. It's huge. It's huge, right? If they have loving, caring, close relationships, the chances of him healing are 3, 4, 5, like I said, 6, 8-fold higher. This is legitimate research where they've been able to actually pinpoint that are the quality of those close relationships. And I would include God in that, right? Our quality, the quality of our relationships has a humongous impact on our health, on our longevity, our ability to recover from illness, all of that stuff. So our emotional state is something that we need to be paying more careful attention to and addressing, and looking at some of these techniques that dive a little deeper. And once again, I don't want to disparage counseling. I know some fantastic counselors do a lot of great work with people, but there are times where people have talked it out a lot. And it's
right. And nothing's getting any better, right? Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm like, we don't need to talk about that much, right? Let's just figure out why the heck, you're so whatever it is, anxious or whatever.
Right.
And so, like I said, it's typically patterned in the emotional, in the nervous system.
Well, that's what is literally fascinating about this, because most people, I think, when they're going to a doctor, right, they have something that's wrong, right? When they're going to go, I'm going to say, hey, I need some help. And they're expecting the white coat to give them a pill to help them with what that issue is, right? And then even people that are deep into the biohacking world, like I am, right? You start thinking, okay, well, what can I do? Is it a cold plunge? Is it a sauna? Is it exercise? What is it that's going to get me through this? And I, including myself, I don't think about that mind and spirit connection, and all the things that you just are talking about. The whole emotional NET component is so important, as you're eloquently just explained. That is really intriguing to me, right? Because I really don't typically think about that, and so it's fascinating that you're helping so many people do go through that. And it sounds to me like when people come see you, you're looking at all things. And that's
I'm looking at all those, and I think that's where we get good results, because you kind of said it right now. If you have a physical problem, you go to the doc and get the pill, potion, lotion, right? And they also, the tools in their toolbox would be like surgery, radiation, things like that, right? So there's this side. If you have stress, go to your counselor, right? But we treat them as if they're like completely separate roads, right? And I'm just like, guys, mind, body, spirit, inseparably connected. You can't really even tease them apart completely because they're so overlapped.
That's beautiful.
They're so overlapped. So I have to address all of those, right? And you get better results when you do that. So I might give somebody a nutritional supplement, give them an adjustment, take them off of a food allergen. Hey, stop eating dairy. You got a problem with that. I clear up a parasite. We do a detox, and then I address the stressful stuff. And when you do all of those together, it's just crazy how much better the results are.
Right.
It's augmented that much more, right? Because what some people will find is like some of the things they were doing are helpful. Not eating gluten was helpful. Taking that supplement is helpful, but there still could be an underlying factor, an underlying current. If you want to use like current as an example, Like that wave comes in, they took the vitamin, they got off the food, they did the paracycle, whatever, but then on the emotion just
sweeps them back out.
Sweeps it right back up. Yeah. You got to address that factor of it.
That's so intriguing. That I mean, 100% makes sense. And that I love that you help people holistically, right? It's like you're not just there to help them with one thing. You're there to help them with the whole. What's the problem, right? And then how do we figure out what that problem is, which I think is fascinating. That Lance asked a question earlier about a topic that we were talking about early on with the mouth, and I think it's related to this in the respect that your mouth, and we were talking about dental work, and the more research I did about this, and you obviously know a lot more than I do, but when I was researching, the one reason why I went and got rid of my root canals in my mouth was the research that I had done in the documentaries that I had watched. Your mouth is connected to the nerve endings to your entire body throughout everywhere. So when you you could have a potential issue in your gum, in a dead tooth or a root canal, and could be an infection in there that's not visible anywhere through anything, but since it's connected to your entire body, that it could be a problem with, for example, I had cancer in my right ankle, and that right ankle could definitely have come from a source in my mouth. And for people, gosh, yes. I mean, that stuff that I thought, I was like, no possible way. That doesn't make zero sense to me. But the more research you do, you can understand that your mouth is connected to your entire body, right? And so to understand it, I mean, did I explain that right?
Oh yeah, no, that's good. What I would add to that would be, it's not only just the connection. So each tooth has a meridian association, but the problem with the root canal specifically is it's the only operation where we kill a part of the body and then leave it.
Yeah.
So if you look at a tooth, right, and you like this way, right, here's the roots down here. The infection's down here. This is the top of the tooth, and the infection's down here. They drill all the way down through, and they kill the nerve. And a lot of people assume, I mean, I did when I was younger, the tooth is a completely solid, hard object, right? Like rock solid. It's not. It's porous inside. So if there's infection in there, it's really, really hard, almost impossible to clean out all of the infection down there. You then cap it. You fill it and cap it. Well, how do most of us know that we have an infection in any area of our body?
Like inflammation, maybe, right? So
yeah, it hurts. It's painful. It's red. It's sore. If you get an infection, you know it, right? Guess what? When you do a root canal, you killed the nerve. There's no pain at all. You feel nothing. You can't tell it's swollen and it doesn't hurt. Nothing. You can't tell it's hot. I mean, it's like nothing there. So you could have, and the bacteria, the specific types of bacteria that are actually in the mouth are different than the rest of the body. So I won't go into all the names of these, but like they're a different type because they can grow without oxygen. They're anaerobic. So these anaerobic bacteria inside there can start percolating, and they can create a cavitation in there, like literally like a cavitation, like a hole, and it's full of this infection and it's leaching out into your body, but you don't have any pain. And to make it worse, you can even go get an x-ray and sometimes they don't see it. So for those of you that are out there taking notes, this is what you got to do. You got to do a cone beam. It's called the cone beam. It's a 3D image to actually see if there's a true cavitation in there, or thermography, because you want to, it will be a little bit warmer a lot of times. So you can do an expensive thermography. I don't want to say expensive. It's not necessarily expensive to get thermography, but it's an expensive camera. Like these are high-tech devices.
Right.
The high-tech device can then detect a slight change in temperature, and they can say, you got a hot spot right there, man, or right there, or whatever. And then, like I said, you need to go to a biodentist. You need somebody who understands the connections between health and teeth. Because some dentists will go, yeah, it's infected. We'll yank it out, pull it out, give me antibiotics, and they send you packing. But do they understand that, like, some of these super bad chronic issues, like you mentioned, like cancer, could have relations to this. Do they understand it? So you want a dentist who understands the connections between our chronic health issues and disease processes and some of these root canal issues. But the biggest thing is they just don't always hurt, man. You could have a failed root canal there for a long period of time. Now, if I remember correctly, you had like 3 or 4 failed root canals and another infected molar and some bad metal fillings. Like
literally we could do a whole show on just my mouth. I had like 16 things that I literally did in a 3-day period. And one of them, I had 5 different cavitations. So you talk about specifics. I had 5 different areas, holes in my jaw that could potentially have been an infection, that could be infected all different parts of my body. And one of them was connected to my right ankle, right? Is the tooth that had an issue was related to that. And that's where my cancer originated. Right? So it's just,
I think it's very likely. I remember having that discussion with you when you very first came in. I'm going, you got to get down to taken care of, man.
And I had no concept and no clue about any of this until this happened. So it's just fascinating because I want to make sure that we educate people about that, because it's so important. Because you'll get people that just say, "Oh, well, get a root canal," because it's very common. But man, you start looking at it, and you're like you said, the research that I had done, the tooth is so porous. It's just like holes everywhere within it, and that can hold bacteria, and you don't know that it's infected because you don't feel it, like you said, because they've already killed the nerve, right? So you don't know that you have a problem. You can't see that you have a problem, yet it could be causing a problem in your ankle from your mouth. So
yes, like I said, if somebody's got really bad, something really bad, I mean, we talk about cancer, MS, so we talk about some of these bad things, Alzheimer's, like, I want to know what the heck's going on in the mouth. That's one of the first questions, right?
Yeah.
I know we're running out of time. I know people had some questions about that. Did we answer those?
Yes. Lance, any other questions you have about the mouth you wanted to ask about? If not, we'll just wrap up. Let's just summarize real quick. We only have a couple minutes left. Just the brain and the NET, practice.
Yeah. So once again, 3 brains. We got our reptile brain, that brain stem that's responding reflexively. That's our fight or flight mode. Then we've got that unconscious mind. That's where the memory and emotions really come from. And if you really want to truly do good work on the emotional side, you got to tap into that brain instead of just talking it through. And I see tremendous results with people in the office every day, all the time. I do this multiple times a day. And it is absolutely incredible how much better people feel mentally, emotionally, physically, on all levels when we start dealing with some of this stuff. It doesn't take a long time. NET can take a few minutes sometimes. But it's a huge part of our health. I'm just saying we can't overlook that. And when somebody says, well, maybe it's stress, go see a counselor. I'm not saying that counseling's bad. It's just, do they have a way or a method to understand what your subconscious is perceiving? And I mean, I've had people come in and they've been doing counseling for years, and I'll have one session with them and I'll say, well, hey, what does your counselor say about this? And they go, oh, we never talked about that. And I'm thinking, how? The biggest trauma of your life. It's a big deal, right?
That's amazing.
So if any of you out there are dealing with some level of a chronic issue, find a NeuroEmotional technique practitioner. You can go to netmindbody.com. You can find them if you guys are around the country. If you're in Texas or especially in DFW, you can come see us at Well Within Chiropractic. Be happy to help you out. More than happy to do a full evaluation on your functional evaluations. And like I said, all the other things we do in the office, IVs, nutritional IVs, peptides, hyperbarics. Peptides are ginormous right now. Our company Forgotten Formula makes peptides. We've got a ton of other really unique products. But we love helping people with chronic issues. If somebody else can fix it, we love to see them. I mean, that's what we do. So, yeah.
Thank you so much for being on the show. It was incredible information. Just wanted to wrap up real quick. Just believe, biohack, and become. Thank you, Doc.
You're welcome.
Remember, if you have air in your lungs today, God has a plan for your life. Believe, biohack, become.
Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. Join the community and get the show notes at biohackingbill.com. Follow us on all social media platforms at biohackingbill. Until next time, believe, biohack, become.